Greetings to you, Zion United Methodist Church. This is Pastor Scott coming to visit with you about your responses to the questions I had asked regarding disaffiliation concerns in the life of the church. It's troubling that we have to deal with this issue, but I do believe it is before us, and I can explain a reason to that toward the end, because you came up with categories, or I came up with categories for you, based on the way you responded to my question. If we leave the United Methodist Church, what are your concerns? If we stay in the United Methodist Church, what are your concerns? And I found 4 categories for each, and then a shared category, which I'll spend some time on. But let me just list them for you. What are your concerns if we were to leave the United Methodist Church? Some of you are concerned we may lose our identity. Many of you worded it like we may lose our heritage or our history. Others of you may have thought more about the future. Well, who are we becoming if we're no longer this? What are we? All reasonable ways of looking at the same kind of thing. Another concern, we might hinder our witness. Now, as I read through all of your responses, as I visited with everyone in the church as they choose to, in different Sunday school classes, even the youth group, I've visited with them about these things. I've not heard anything that would lead someone to believe we're exclusionary or discriminatory, but that doesn't mean that people wouldn't see us that way if there was a disaffiliation that took place. So even if we didn't intend on it, even if that's not the spirit of Zion, and I celebrate with you that it's not the spirit of Zion, we might hinder our witness. That's true, and it's a reasonable concern. Another concern, we might lose the benefits to connectionalism. Connectionalism is sort of the status of the way things work in the Methodist Church. We're very connected. Pastors do things together. Congregations do things together. For example, we do an Easter cantata with New McKendree. Sometimes it's here at Zion, sometimes it's there at New McKendree, but we work together. We're connected, and we do that often and in various ways in the life of the Methodist Church. If we leave the United Methodist Church, I can guarantee you there's a loss of some connectionalism, at least, because we're no longer United Methodist. But it sort of depends on what happens next. If we become independent, we're not connected to anybody, so you absolutely do lose it. But if you become connected to another denomination, it kind of depends upon how connectionalistic are they. I think I just made up that word. Anyway, the fourth concern, we may be only reacting to hysteria. I like the phrase, we don't want to react, we want to respond. We may be reacting to the hysteria that's going on out there. We're sort of feeling the crazed reactions to what's happening, people's decisions, people's words. Are we caught up in it? It's a good question. And if we're just reacting to the hysteria, then we may make a bad decision. So that's a reasonable concern. To begin, those who are concerned if we stay in the United Methodist Church, some folks think that the denomination's general direction just continues. There's nothing to stop it. It's already headed in a bad direction, in their opinion, and they don't like where that's going. It's just going to continue to happen. There's nothing to be done about it. If we stay, we're caught up in the midst of that. If we stay, there won't be any accountability for those in power. And when our district superintendent was here, he said that was absolutely the case, that one of the main problems is in the current books of discipline, throughout the books of discipline, there is an amount of accountability that was never expected to be necessary and therefore wasn't supplied. And since it's missing, it's a problem. And that's one of the problems we're going through. Folks are concerned that would continue. And then if we stay in the United Methodist Church, others are concerned that we may be appointed a pastor who doesn't hold our values. Now, a lot of this was anonymous. Some of you wrote your names on it. No big deal to me. I didn't need your names, but we did have a meeting from our district superintendent who told us he would never send us a pastor who didn't hold our values. And if you were at that meeting, why would you ask this question? Maybe they weren't at the meeting, but I would guess, because there wasn't just one person who had that opinion, I would guess that the people who were at that meeting, and they still have that opinion, and I want to speak to that a little bit, just because I think it always helps to have a little bit more context. On certain questions, I'm providing a little bit more context. 25 years ago in the history of this church, not exactly, but sometime in that line, 4 pastors ago, there was a pastor who was here for less than a year because he didn't hold the values of Zion. That's what it comes down to. And in fact, what brought Ann Mowry here, to be here for 11 years and to help build the Disciple Center, and her time as pastor here, she came on the heels of that ministry because things were tense and it didn't work out too well. So I think a lot of those people who would be asking that question, even after hearing from our district superintendent, is the history of the church. So I just want to say it's a valid concern, even though it's been addressed. by the hierarchy to this point. If we stay in the United Methodist Church, further generations might not hear the gospel. That's kind of a loaded way of saying it, but their perspective would be maybe the general direction of the church is headed in a wrong direction. Maybe the watering down of the gospel is already occurring, in their opinion. And then if that continues, then it won't be the gospel. Even if people come to the church, we're not hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. I don't know. It kind of depends upon the gospel, how you define that, and I don't. That definition and how you play that out, I think would lend to more or less credibility in that. But it was a main concern for a number of folks, and I think it does need to be addressed, which is my hope. I hope to make a few more videos in the future, maybe addressing some of these concerns, putting some of them to rest, or lifting up the validity of others, so that we can unpack this more and more as we go. But I've got one more concern for us, which was shared on both sides in this video, and that is folks were concerned that if we leave the United Methodist Church, folks might leave our congregation. If we stay in the United Methodist Church, there were folks who were concerned others would leave our congregation. And I have been told that directly by different folks. So it looks like to me, if we make a decision about this, regardless which direction we go, people will leave. But I would also add, if we don't make a decision, people will leave. It looks as though we are in a situation in which nothing of our doing, not the way we do our worship services, our outreach, our ministries, our small groups, men's breakfasts, women's Bible studies, UWF, youth group, bridge class, none of that stuff is leading anyone to. So what Zion does, what Zion believes, as I said, I read through your words, and we're not discriminatory, we're not exclusionary, and yet people are going to leave. And it's not because of what we're doing. It's not because of what I'm preaching. It's not because of how we sing. People are going to leave. I'm not saying that they don't have a reason. I'm saying the reason isn't Zion. We're not doing it. So I'd like for you to prayerfully consider why this is happening. What's going on that we're caught up in the middle of this, and it looks as though no matter what we do, someone's going to leave us, and we're not going to be able to worship the same family of God that we used to be. Now, I've resigned myself to that fact and understand that God's plan isn't like he's completely hindered, thinking, my goodness, they're going to disaffiliate. All of my plans for them is completely gone, or they're going to stay exactly in the church, and then those folks are going to leave, and then all my plans for them are completely gone. God's not freaking out. And that's why I wanted you to do this survey. These are legitimate concerns, but we don't operate. The people of God don't operate in fear. We operate knowing who God is, and we draw close to him. And then he will lead us in the right decisions to make, the right ministries to be a part of, and the things that we need to continue to do that will help us be Zion in the future. So even though these are legitimate concerns, let's begin to prayerfully take them to God and ask God to help us discern what we should do, knowing full well that there are people inclined to leave no matter what we do. So that as we make the right decision, even if folks choose not to worship with us anymore, that we're still doing what God would have us do. That is so important, that we do what God would have us do. And then what it means is what it means. And then he will provide, just like he always promised the people of God in the New Testament. If you keep my commands, my hand of protection will remain on you, and I will bless your land. We have a covenantal God who loves us and wants us to be in relationship with him, individually and as a body of believers. It's a beautiful thing that even disaffiliation concerns cannot hinder. So don't lose heart, don't lose faith. Continue to be a part of Zion until the Lord might lead you into another direction. But that's up to you, between you and him. We're going to continue to be the church that God is calling us to be. And we invite you to participate with us, regardless of what the future holds. Bless you, and I look forward to seeing you again on video and in worship.